The president addressed the report, revealing his administration agreed to pay $400 million in what several people call ransom to free 4 Americans detained in Iran. With us to discuss this on the telephone, Fox News national security analyst KT McFarland and Conservative Review's Deneen Borelli. But first, we want to talk with KT. Is there anything in particular that the president said regarding the payment, he says it's not ransom, that sticks out to you that might prove him wrong?
Well, he said what I expected him to say. He said it wasn't ransom in any way. We don't pay ransom for hostages. But the fact of the matter is that on the same airport, they were waiting for the money to come in to pay the ransom before they released the hostages. But, Adam, the thing that struck me, Barack Obama's tired. After 7.5 years, he hasn't solved any of these problems. He hasn't really come up with any new plans. And it was his detachment and his sort of lack of ability to say, I'm the president, I'm going to solve this, here's what we're going to do. He just seemed overwhelmingly sort of exhausted and tired by the job that he's got. I was stunned at how inarticulate he was, how he sort of kept tripping over his words, a lot of stuttering. He just looks like a man who's ready to check out.
He did actually stumble over the response to the question about the $400 million. Let me bring in Deneen and ask you, is there anything that stuck out to you? Was it the inability to answer directly on the $400 million or something else?
Well, that's the thing. He did not answer the question. And, you know, it's very concerning that how he was very defensive about Iran. He was very defensive about the money that was exchanged. Meanwhile, there was an actual hostage, Saeed Abedin, who said they could not leave that vicinity until the other plane landed. He
was actually on with Trish Regan on Fox Business this afternoon. Let's play the soundbite because he was there, and here's what he said.
And, you know, they told us, you're going to be there for 20 minutes, but it took like hours and hours. We slept at the airport, and when I asked them why you don't let us go, because the plane was there, pilot was there, everyone was ready that we leave the country, they said we are waiting for another plane, and until that plane doesn't come, we never let you go.
KT, you've just heard the soundbite from this afternoon from one of the hostages who was there and was being told by the Iranians, you don't get to leave until the plane that they were waiting on arrives, and of course, that was the unmarked cargo plane with the cash. Sounds like ransom to a normal person, doesn't it? Yeah,
and it's a long-standing tradition in American foreign policy. We don't pay ransom for hostages. Why? Because all that happens is we encourage the taking of more hostages. I had a man who worked for me when I was in the Pentagon in the Reagan administration, and he was taken hostage by terrorists in the Middle East, and he was not released. He was tortured and ultimately killed. And I know how hard it is for those families to have to cope with that, and how it weighs heavily on any president. The problem is, the minute you start paying that ransom, you put an X on the back of any Americans. And, in fact, that's exactly what's happened. We paid ransom for these hostages, and what happened afterwards? Iran snagged 2 more.
So, KT, let me bring in, you know, he's a Fox News military analyst and host of War Stories here on Fox Business Network, Colonel Oliver North. You were listening to the president's press conference, and you've actually dealt with the Iranians in the past. What do you think of the way the administration is trying to explain away this payment?
And it was disappointing that no one asked him why it was done in the middle of the night in foreign currency with a chartered aircraft when there's a transport aircraft right behind it. If you pull back on that vid that we keep running, that's the plane that's going to bring the hostages out. If it was going to be a straightforward deal, nobody needed to be worried about it, you'd have brought the money shipment in American dollars, so you could at least try to trace some of it. And second of all, you'd have brought them in on the same airplane that's going to take the hostages out. It would have been at least straightforward. This was not. It was the middle of the night kind of deal. And having dealt with the Iranians, I understand how they want to do things. This administration has proven that they can dissemble about almost anything, and they've done so every year for the last 8 years. But the bottom line of it is, when I was dealing with the Iranians, the very first thing that they asked for was the $400 million from the Shah that was frozen after the 1979 coup, and of course the seizure of our embassy. They asked the Carter administration for it. I was on the NSC staff. I read those documents, and this is what they asked me for when I showed up. Turns out I'm a better negotiator than Kerry, because we didn't pay the Iranians a damn thing. They paid us. We took millions of dollars, used them to help the Nicaraguan resistance, and we sent them TOW missiles that didn't work that were from Israel. So apparently Mr. Kerry can't negotiate very well.
In the limited time I have left, KT, I want to play devil's advocate and just ask you a question that regarding what Colonel North has just said. The United States paid this money, but we did this according to the administration because, one, we don't have banking relations with them. Two, isn't it illegal to use U.S. dollars? They couldn't have sent $400 million U.S. dollars, and that would explain why they had to go to the central banks of foreign countries and convert to foreign currency. Or is this a cover-up?
A bit of each. I mean, it's a cover-up to the extent that there were secret side deals in the Iranian nuclear deal, and the administration put everything on the line. If we give the Iranians everything they want, they're going to change their evil ways. Well, they haven't changed their evil ways, and the administration is covering up the fact that they got snookered.
Deneen, I want to bring you back into this discussion. Does the president address the concerns of average Americans in regards to our dealings,
No.
not only with the Iranians, but also with, how we're going to combat ISIS?
Yeah, no, not at all. And I think the most ridiculous comment he made was that we don't have a banking relationship with Iran. Yeah, because they're a state sponsor of terror. I mean, clearly the administration went around our laws in order to provide this funding, which, by the way, even John Kerry said that some of this will end up with terrorists, this money.
Colonel North, I only have 20 seconds, but I want to ask you, has the administration put the lives of average Americans at risk who might be traveling overseas?
Certainly. And it happened to Tom Jefferson, who paid the ransom for the very first time as a president. It always happens. It always results in more hostages.
All right, Colonel North, we appreciate you joining us. KT McFarland, always a pleasure to have you here. And Deneen, appreciate your being here in studio with us.